Hello, and welcome to the Technology Requirements and Readiness Training. This is for our new technology coordinators or districts and schools that are new to computer-based testing. We have a lot to go over in the next couple of hours, so let's go ahead and get started. First, though, I do want to say if your school is interested in participating in the Tech Roadshow, and that's coming up in January, please email Kenitra Germany by November 10th. And again, if you're interested in participating in the Tech Roadshow in January, please email Kenitra by November 10th. My name is Sarah Snuggs, and I will be your trainer today. I thank you for coming. I know that everybody's got busy schedules, so I appreciate you taking some time out of your day to attend our training. If you have any questions as we go through the training, go ahead and just click on that Q&A option on your navigation bar, and that will open up this question box, and you can input that question that you have, and I'll try to answer questions as we go through. Otherwise, one of our panelists will respond to you as soon as possible. So here's our agenda. We're going to go through an introduction to computer-based testing, also known as CBT. So when you see the CBT acronym, that does stand for computer-based testing. We'll talk about some resources that you have available for computer-based testing, the different system requirements for the different components, what those components of computer-based testing are. We'll talk about how to set up TestNav on your Chromebooks and iPads, and then a little bit about just kind of putting the whole picture together. So let's begin with your computer-based testing resources. The first place, and really one of your main resources that you're going to use, should be the ACT Aspire landing page. And you can find that at actaspire.pearson.com, and then go to the Technology Setup tab. So the landing page is intended to be kind of your one-stop shop for all of your ACT Aspire information, and has the resources or links to the resources that you need. So here on the Tech Setup page, this is where you'll find all of the major technology documents, quick explanations of the different computer-based testing components, links to installers, and really everything you need to get you pointed, hopefully, in the right direction. So I'm going to go ahead and come out here to the site. And so here is the landing page. Again, that's actaspire.pearson.com. I'm going to go to Technology Setup. And so up here, we have some quick links, the Technical Readiness Manual. And this manual is intended for the technology coordinators to help them prepare for computer-based testing, so all of the information they need to get technology and infrastructure ready. A link to the TestNav system requirements, and we'll talk about this site some more, but this is the TestNav 8 support site. It's quickly linked here off of the Technology Setup. News and bulletins, as we send out information about technology updates, technical bulletins and news will be housed here so that you can always find them in the future. Computer-based testing components, and we'll talk about each of these in depth here in just a little bit, but System Check, ProctorCache, TestNav 8, and again, what are these components? A little blurb about what they are. You can quickly visit the tool, or in case of Proctor caching, the installers. We'll talk about how you install that. And then another link, again, directly to that TestNav 8 support site. Once we get to TestNav, TestNav is the student testing platform that you're going to use. We do recommend using the installable TestNav version. So we have links to the desktop app, which is intended for both desktops and laptops, the iPad app and the Chromebook app. We have other additional technology resources, and you'll see we have a link to the ACT Aspire Portal User Guide, and technology coordinators will need to go into the portal to enter some settings so that the test content can be delivered to students through your Proctor caching computer. We'll talk more about Proctor caching again here in a moment. The Technical Readiness Manual again, the Technology Coordinator Checklist, and this checklist is intended to go through all of the information that technology coordinators need so that they can prepare for the ACT Aspire assessment. And it's kind of set out by time frame, so 2 months before, 1 month before, again, preparing for the online assessments and making sure you have plenty of time. Contingency plan, these are a sample list of steps that you can take to prepare for certain rare circumstances that may occur during testing. For example, unplanned fire drill, inclement weather, the internet goes down. We have some sample plan out there to kind of help you get started and give you some possible action steps, and then you can expand on them, modify this plan as needed, and create your own local district and school action plan. Okay, so now the TestNav 8 support site, again, that's accessible from the technology setup under those TestNav system requirements, link right up at the top. This support site provides you information about setting up and supporting TestNav. Again, that's the student testing platform, and then Proctor Caching. And Proctor Caching is software that will help you reduce the internet service provider bandwidth requirements, your ISP bandwidth requirements, so that you can test more students concurrently and provide a better, more stable and smooth testing environment. So the support site is updated regularly, and only contains the most current support information, and you can always come to that recently updated section to detail any recent changes. This is a public site, no login is required. So we'll come up here again on the technology setup, clicking on this TestNav system requirements or visit TestNav 8 support. We'll open up our TestNav 8 support site. And here you'll see this is the TestNav system requirements. We support for ACT Aspire the Windows, OS 10, Linux, iOS, and Chrome OS operating systems. ACT Aspire does not at this time support Android, so you can disregard this column. This is, again, not intended for ACT Aspire, but we still support the same platforms we did last year. So again, Windows, OS 10, Linux, iOS, and Chrome OS. So information about the hardware requirements. These are ports and URLs that you need to make sure are whitelisted so that they can get through your firewalls and content filters. We'll talk more about these again later in the training, but those are listed here on the TestNav 8 support site. Here are the operating systems that we support. So again, disregard the Android row, but then Chrome OS 50 through 53, iOS 9.3.2 through 9.3.5, Fedora for Linux 24, and Ubuntu 16.04, OS 10 versions 10.9 and through 10.11, and Windows 7, 8.1, and 10. You'll find here that there are links to the installable TestNav. So they're out on the landing page here on the installers. They're also here on the support site, so you can quickly find them. And then setup instructions to kind of help you walk through the installation and setup process for each of the different platforms that we support. We do recommend the installable version, but as a backup, we do have browser-based TestNav. It is only supported, though, on Firefox ESR 45 in the 32-bit version. So this is not the standard Firefox download. It is a specific version. Firefox ESR 45 stands for Extended Support Release. So to make sure that you have the correct version, we do have a direct link to those installers for both Mac OS and Windows, and setup instructions for browser-based testing as well. Again, these are those additional technology resources that we're looking at on the landing page. So this is a screenshot of the Technology Coordinator checklist. It is on the Alabama Avocet site located under C for checklists. and it is on the ACT Aspire landing page on the additional technology resources. And again, it's laid out 2 months before the administration, 1 month before. All of that information is there so that, again, technology coordinators can make sure that they are preparing the infrastructure so that they are able to have the smoothest online testing experience that they can. So we would recommend having these resources handy. You can print them out if needed, or of course bookmark them so that you can always find them on your computer. The Technical Readiness Manual, we showed that that's on both the landing page as well as you can find it on the Alabama Avocet site. And then TestNav 8 error codes. These are again on the TestNav 8 support site as well as on the Avocet site. I'll show you both of those now. So here on the landing page on our technology setup, this is where the Technical Readiness Manual is. And then on the TestNav 8 support site under Troubleshooting, error codes, this is where you can find all of the different error codes that may come up from TestNav as students are testing. The Alabama Avocet site, here under Training and Manuals. Avocet is our online index of all of our manuals and documents and different resources that are available. It's at the very bottom, Avocet. And you'll see that there's a link to the Avocet site, and if you scroll down, there's a direct link to the Alabama Avocet. You always want to make sure you're using the Alabama Avocet site. I'm going to show here, just clicking the regular one, just says ACT Aspire. And here's a link here on the home page to the Alabama site. Let's go there. You'll see it says ACT Aspire Alabama. So you always want to make sure when you're on Avocet that it says ACT Aspire Alabama at the top. And then under T for TestNav, here are those error code, links you directly to that error code section. So again, you can quickly find them from the support site as well as from the Avocet site. Okay, so now we'll discuss the different components of computer-based testing. There are 4 components that work together so that you're able to deliver the test content to students. And we'll talk about each of them briefly and then go into more depth on them throughout our presentation today. So first of all is the ACT Aspire portal. And this is, of course, where administrators are going to import and manage their student data. This is where the test sessions are created, reports are accessed after the administration is over. But the portal is role-based, and so this is where you can invite technology coordinators and where you need to invite your technology coordinators so that they can input the information so that test sessions can find the Proctor caching computer. Next is TestNav 8. So TestNav 8 is the secure testing engine that students are going to use. This is where they're going to log in and be able to access their test. Behind the scenes is another component of TestNav 8 that's called the Early Warning System, or EWS. And the Early Warning System is there to maintain the test security. It's going to check for connectivity issues or any content issues that may occur while the students are testing. The early warning system is also what's maintaining the student responses. So as they go through the test and make their answer selections, early warning system is what's recording that so that it can be sent over to our servers for scoring. So as the students enter their response, if they go back and change it, that is being captured, and then it's going to be transmitted to, again, our servers. It's being stored locally in an encrypted format and then transmitted to us. And so it gives the added benefit of students being able to resume where they left off in case there's any connectivity or network failure. And it's also what's making sure that, again, those student responses are being transmitted and that they are being received before we remove the students' answers locally. So Proctor caching is free software that we provide, and it's going to work with TestNav to reduce your overall bandwidth requirements for computer-based testing. It allows you to pre-download the test content and store it there locally in an encrypted format. And so that lets you serve the test content to your students at local speeds rather than having to go through the internet and tying up your internet bandwidth. Again, it's a very flexible installation. You can do this at the district or school level, and it does not require, a robust computer. You don't have to have server class operating systems. In most cases, you can even use a desktop or laptop computer if needed. It should not be the same device that students are testing on. Proctor caching needs to be separate from a student testing computer. But you can use one proctor caching machine to service many students at once. And then system check for TestNav 8. So this is a tool that is going to be used, helps you determine system readiness on traditional desktop and laptop workstations. This is not intended for our mobile devices. Since it's a website, there's no installation necessary, but you do need to be using Firefox ESR 45, that 32-bit version, in order to access System Check. System Check is going to verify that workstations meet the minimum system requirements in order to run the TestNav desktop app or browser-based testing. So in the case of desktop, it's checking the operating system. It is also going to check the Java version and the browser in the event of browser-based testing. It also allows you to perform a connectivity test so that you can see that the student workstation is able to retrieve sample test content through TestNav, and you can also run speed checks to help you gauge how many students you are able to test at one time. Okay, so now let's have a look at where you can find system requirement information and be aware of which ones have system requirement information. So there are three components, and that's the ACT Aspire portal, TestNav 8, and Proctor Cache that have system requirements. System Check, of course, is browser-based, so it doesn't have its own system requirements. But you always want to make sure that you are meeting the minimum system requirements for each of these components. And again, they are found on the landing page under that technology setup, as well as on the Alabama EVASET under each individual component. Okay, so we're going to start with Proctor Cache. So Proctor Cache is ACT Aspire and Pearson supplied software that is going to be used in conjunction with TestNav in order to reduce bandwidth requirements and, again, accelerate the delivery of test content. So by using Proctor Cache, you are able to pre-cache the test content before the test window begins, and it's going to be there on your local network. You're going to store that in an encrypted local copy. So all the pre-cached tests are then stored there on the Proctor caching machine or machines that you identify. And then it's able to serve the test content to students at local area network speeds, on LAN speeds, rather than, again, having to go through the internet. So this helps you reduce or eliminate redundant downloads of the test content, and that's going to reduce the burden on your internet service provider. Last year, Proctor caching was recommended, but really due to the benefits it provides, Proctor caching is now required for all 2016, 2017 computer-based assessments because we want to make sure that you are able to support the number of students you need to test, and Proctor caching is going to help you do that. So let's go through the Proctor caching workflow kind of at a high level. So in the portal, current users will be rolled over, but if necessary, test coordinators and administrators are always able to invite new technology coordinators into the portal. So if you're a technology coordinator and you have not yet received an invitation into the portal, make sure you contact your test coordinator to get a portal account set up. Once technology coordinators are able to log into the portal, this is where you're going to go to create what we call default Proctor cache settings there in the portal. So we're going to talk about Proctor caching, but those settings are what's going to link the test content that you cache onto your Proctor caching machine, it's going to link that content to the test session so that when students log in, those settings tell TestNav where to go and fetch the content from. Testing coordinators will then set up their test sessions after the settings are in the portal, and those settings will then be automatically added to the test session information. And then technology coordinators can verify that the test sessions are directed to the Proctor cache machines and pre-cache the test content. We do want to note that Proctor cache settings should be entered in the portal before test sessions are created, so that, again, the test sessions are gathering the content from the proper Proctor caching machine. If test sessions started to get entered by your testing coordinators prior to those settings, we will talk about how you can make sure that those Proctor cache settings then do get applied to any test sessions that were created before you entered your settings. Okay, so let's take a look at why Proctor caching is required. So here on the left, we have a network that is not using Proctor caching. So we can see each student computer down here is requesting the test content, and it's being downloaded through the internet. So many of these students are going to be taking the same test, they're taking the same form, and so these are redundant copies that are being pulled down. So a lot of information is being downloaded simultaneously over your internet connection, and you also have other internet-related activities that are going to be going on a normal basis. You have teachers who might be showing YouTube content to students in their classroom. You have computer labs. You may even have, reports and jobs that are being run, like your attendance reporting is being run. So those other normal activities are also occurring. So you definitely want to make sure that your internet is not being overutilized. So here on the right, we can see a network that is using Proctor caching. So we have, again, our student computers, but in this case, the test content is going to be pulled down once through the internet. It's then going to be stored locally, again, in an encrypted format on the Proctor caching computer. And the Proctor caching computer is then going to use the local area network, your intranet, to deliver the test content to students. So much less activity has to go through the internet. We're going to pull it down once. You're going to be able to do that in advance. And then, of course, student responses will be transmitted. But you can see that Proctor caching really assists you in being able to test as many students as you may need to. Again, Proctor caching is flexible, so you can set this up at the district or school level. But you can see that without Proctor caching, every testing computer has to individually connect to download that test content, whereas here with Proctor caching, it's going to be that Proctor caching computer that is going to send the test content to the students. Okay, so now let's talk about how to set up the Proctor caching. This is a pretty simple process. It only takes a few minutes. It is a small footprint installation. All of our installers are small footprint. They're not intended to, be a time-consuming download and install for you. So it should only take you a few minutes. And again, due to the many benefits it's going to provide, it is, again, a required setup step this year. So first of all, if you have previously done Proctor caching, you did it when it was recommended, you will need to uninstall your previous version and then download the latest installer. These are new installers since spring of 2016. And if you didn't previously Proctor cache, you'll just start with downloading the latest installer. Again, those links are off of the technology setup. They will take you here to this download.testnav.com website, and this is where you'll be able to get your installers. Once you've downloaded it, then you can run the installer, and there's an Install Anywhere wizard that's going to prompt you through, again, the pretty minimal installation steps that are needed. After the installation is complete, then you'll start the service. It is normally started by default. It's an option as you go through the installation, but there are shortcuts that are going to be available in your installed file that will allow you to start or stop the service as needed. Then you want to verify that the service is running, and this is done by visiting the Proctor Cash Diagnostics page, and we'll cover the diagnostics page in a little more detail shortly. If you've previously Proctor cached for a previous test, and you can now purge your previously cached test content, and there are instructions for purging cached content on the Alabama Avocet site in that technical readiness manual. Also, that is, of course, cross-linked on the landing page. So here's the Proctor Cash Diagnostic screen. Once you get there, there are 3 tabs. And the first tab is the Test tab. Test tab allows you to see the information about the test content and its caching status. You can even drill down to the individual test item level if needed. The Clients tab displays information about the IP addresses that are connecting to TestNav. So as students start to log into their TestNav tests, you'll be able to see those IP addresses on the Proctor Cash diagnostic screen and can, again, drill down to the individual client level. And then the Settings tab will allow you to set a custom password to refresh, reload, or purge cached content if needed. Okay, so let's go ahead and take a look at the Proctor Cash diagnostic screen. So I have Proctor Caching installed. Here's my Proctor Cache. So these are those start and stop Proctor Caching if needed. And then Monitor Proctor Caching. I'm on Windows 7. It may look a little different on your version, but that Monitor Proctor Caching option will then open up the Proctor Cash diagnostic screen. So here on the Test tab, this is where you can see, again, test content that you have pre-cached and the status, and you can drill down, again, all the way into the item level if needed. But you can see the status for the overall download out here. The Clients tab, I'm not supporting any students on TestNav, so I don't have that information, but you'll be able to, again, see the student IP address information as they start to log on and connect to TestNav. And then the Settings tab, this is where you can reset, change your password if needed for the Proctor Caching service. Okay, so now that you've downloaded and installed your Proctor Caching, you've made sure that through that diagnostic screen that it is running, and you're now ready to set up your Proctor Cache settings in the ACT Aspire portal. So there's no need to configure each of your individual student workstations to point them to the Proctor Caching machine. You're going to go into the portal and enter what we call default Proctor Cache settings, and then apply those defaults to test sessions as they are created. And that's what's going to essentially point TestNav to the Proctor Caching computer. Those settings that you apply in the portal, that lets TestNav know where the Proctor Caching machine is, and that's how it knows where to fetch the cached content from. So those Proctor Cache settings are directing TestNav to your pre-cached content. And then as a fail-safe, if you forget to pre-cache your content and the content is not there, then Proctor Caching will do what we kind of call caching on the fly. As students start to log into TestNav, it will start to gather the content directly at that point so that students can access the Proctor cached or the cached content from the Proctor Caching machine. So let's go through the different steps. So you need to log into the portal, and like I said, you can set up your Proctor Cache settings at either the district or school level. And so when you log in, you want to make sure that you're choosing the correct organization. If you're at the district level, you'll choose the district. And then if you're setting it up at the school level, then you need to make sure you're choosing the school level information. Once you have your organization selected, then you'll go to Organizations and choose Proctor Cache Settings. That will open up this Manage Proctor Cache screen. From here, you'll enter your Proctor Caching IP address and port. And this does need to be a fixed internal IP address. Fixed or static IP address rather than a dynamic IP address. With a dynamic IP address, that IP information may change daily or weekly, but it is changing on a regular basis, and you need to make sure that Proctor caching is always available. So that Proctor caching IP address tells, again, TestNav where to find the content. If that IP address has changed, then you've broken that link. So that is why it does need to be a fixed internal IP address, and then port 4480 is what you'll enter for the Proctor cache machine. Once you enter your information, you can choose the Check Status button. That allows you to quickly navigate to that Proctor cache diagnostic screen that we were looking at, and make sure that the service is running, that you've put in the correct information for the IP address and port. And then go ahead and click Save to make the settings active. So very easy step in the portal. You've installed it on the computer. You just need to make sure you get that IP address, enter it here into the portal, and that's going to make the connection to TestNav. So you need to make sure you complete this step so that the test content can be found, that you don't just set up Proctor caching on the computer. You also need to set up the settings in the portal. So now that you've entered your Proctor cache settings, you're now able to apply these Proctor cache settings to test sessions. So normally when creating a test session, once those settings are entered, they will be automatically input into test sessions as they are created. Like we talked about, you should have Proctor cache settings entered first in the portal and then start creating your test sessions. Sometimes, though, testing coordinators might get a little ahead, start creating test sessions before the Proctor cache settings are in there. So we're going to go through the steps that you need to follow so that you can apply your default settings to test sessions that may have been already created before you entered them. So to do this, you'll want to be at the organization level where your Proctor caching machine is. Then you're going to go to Organizations, Manage Test Sessions, and that will open up this test session Proctor cache screen. So we have this, this test session right here. It doesn't have any information in the Proctor cache field. So as these students start to log into TestNav, since there are no Proctor cache settings for it to access, these students will start accessing the content directly through your internet service provider. So again, you need the settings so that it's going to the Proctor cache machine. So pretty easy. We see this computer doesn't have a Proctor cache setting. You're just going to click that action checkbox, and then you'll see then that the Proctor cache settings are pulled into this test session. So now when these students log in, then TestNav will see there's the Proctor cache machine, and it'll start to fetch content from there rather than through the internet. So the last thing you'll need to do is pre-cache the test to your Proctor caching machine or machines. So you're going to do this about a week before the test window, so that way you have plenty of time to make sure you get your test content pulled down. You don't want to wait until the day of testing, so we give you about a week to do that. So again, you're going to go to the organization where you've created your Proctor cache settings. You're going to go to Organizations and Pre-cache Tests. And then here you'll see it opens up the Manage Pre-cache Test screen. You can do up to 10 tests at a time. It'll show a list of all the available tests that are all the available tests that you can pre-cache. You'll just check the box next to the tests that you need, and then click the pre-cache button. And so that is what's going to tell the Proctor cache machine to start pulling down that content and saving it there locally on that computer, and then students will be able to access it. And then, like I said, if for some reason you forget this last step of pre-caching, the Proctor cache computer will start to download the test content the first time students log in. so that as that test content is pulled down, it's then available for other students. Ideally, though, you do want to be pre-caching so that you don't have any of that internet bandwidth being affected by students having to pull down test content through the internet. You want to be able to just have it pre-cached and available for students on the day of testing. Okay, so let's go ahead and flip over to the portal, and we'll show that here real quick. I'm in this test instance, so you'll want to make sure, like I said, choose, if it's a district or school level setting that you're creating. And then you'll go to Organizations, Proctor Cache Settings, and this is where you'll be able to enter your IP address. And I'm sorry, let me go ahead and switch over to a different tenant. And I'll be able to do my Proctor Cache settings. This is where you'll enter in, again, that fixed IP address and the port, and then check status, and that'll open up your Proctor Cache diagnostic screen so that you can make sure that the service is running, and then click Save once your information is entered. Then you'll be able to go to Manage Test Sessions and look for these test sessions that don't have your Proctor Cache settings yet. These were created before we have settings. We saw there were no settings available. So once you enter those, you'll be able to click the action and update and import those Proctor Cache settings to your test sessions. And then at that point, you'll be about a week before the test again. This is when you'll be able to pre-cache your tests. You'll come here, and I don't have any available here on this test instance, but you'd go to that pre-cache test, and that's where you'd be able to, again, download the tests up to 10 at a time and download that content there locally onto your Proctor caching machine. Okay, so that's Proctor caching. The next thing we are going to talk about is System Check for TestNav. And this is just for our desktop app and for browser-based testing. So this is our traditional workstations and not our mobile devices. So System Check was developed to help our customers prepare for online testing on, again, traditional workstations by validating that those workstations meet the minimum system requirements for TestNav and to assess internet bandwidth. So this allows you to make updates to these computers prior to the testing window if necessary. So when you go to System Check, you can validate, again, the testing workstation. This is the actual student workstation, the laptop or desktop, and make sure that it meets the minimum system requirements. So for the desktop app, it's going to check the operating system. And then in the case of browser-based testing, it's also going to check the browser and Java version to make sure they meet our system requirements. System Check is not intended to test readiness on mobile devices. You'll be using the TestNav app check in the Chromebook or iPad TestNav apps, and we'll be showing that here in a little bit. But so System Check is only for traditional workstations. So again, this is going to help you identify computers that may need an update in order to be ready for computer-based testing. Additionally, you are able to run bandwidth speed checks, and that helps you plan for online testing as well. So we do say, though, to make sure you're gathering realistic results, you do need to be running these speed checks on the same day of week and time of day as when you anticipate performing online testing. Don't run these speed checks, at the end of the day after students are going home or on the weekends. If you're going to be testing Monday through Friday from 9 a.m. to noon, for example, then you need to be running System Check from 9 a.m. to noon to kind of get an idea of what may be going on. Like I said, there might be, other jobs that are being run. You need to be able to plan for those and adjust accordingly. So that's why you want to run it on those same days of week and times of day. Additionally, if you are ever needing to get assistance with troubleshooting, that ACT Aspire customer service may also use these system check results, have you run that so that they can get some additional information. Okay, so System Check, like I said, it's an online tool, so you're going to go to systemcheck.actaspire.org. And you do need to access this from that same Firefox ESR 45, that 32-bit version that we were required to support TestNav. You need to be using that same version of the browser in order to access System Check. It won't run if you're trying to access it from a different browser. Since System Check is browser-based and relies on the Java plugin, you do also need to make sure that the latest version of Java is installed when you're running System Check on your workstations. And then when you visit the site, you'll get this pop-up to accept and run the Java applet. And I do want to note, if you've run any other readiness checks or are using other readiness tools for other assessments, that is, of course, helpful, but you'd still want to make sure you're using System Check for ACT Aspire so that you're getting system results for our testing assessment. So here is the TestNav System Check site. There are two tabs. The first one is Check Your System, and you'll just click Start to begin. And what it's going to do is going to check, again, the installed browser, Java environment, and operating system as applicable. Remember, it's not for any of our iPads or Chromebooks. This is only for traditional workstations. So once it's run, you'll see these results start to come in. So here we see the results column. The first column is for the desktop app. That, again, is our recommended version, and you can see why. Here, Firefox and Java are not required, so you're not impacted by updates that may occur. You don't want Firefox running an update or Java running an update before or during testing, where suddenly you have to make a lot of adjustments to make sure that the student workstations are updated. And I know, for example, Java has a quarterly update, which tends to fall right there in April, which is right before or even during testing for some people. So this desktop app is going to let you have more, secure and stable environment. You don't have to have the browser in Java going through updates and making sure that you're having to account for that. As a backup, though, we do have the browser-based testing. So on this workstation, I'm good to go. It's checked just the operating system for that desktop app. For browser-based testing, it is going to check the browser and the Java environment as well. This case, we were successful. We have our green check marks and we passed. If for any reason one or more of these components didn't pass, then there would be a red X. We'd see, what the result was, what it's finding installed on that computer. And then here after the red X, there would be information about what is supported. So you'd know what you have and what you need to make updates to in order to pass the system check. And then you can always save these results. You can do that by clicking on Print Friendly, and that will open up the results in a PDF version. And then you can either print that out or save it electronically. And we get questions, which student workstation should I check? Ideally, you should be checking every single computer that's going to be used, every laptop and desktop that's going to be used for the assessment purposes. We know that may not always be possible. So in that case, we do recommend at least having representative of each of your images. Your technology coordinators are going to have different images for the computers, that you're testing your Windows 7.1, your Windows 8, your Mac OS, whatever the case might be, any of those different types of images that you are checking to make sure that that image doesn't have an update that needs to be run. On this Check Your System tab, there's also a section beneath here that's titled Verification, and it's going to allow you to launch a sample test in TestNav to verify that it runs on the student workstation. So here's the Testing Capacity tab, and this is where you're going to be able to run those real-time speed checks that I was talking about. Again, this is going to be checking the speed check between that student workstation and the Pearson servers. So again, run this at the same time of day, day of week as when you're going to do online testing. It will always check direct to Pearson, so going directly through your internet and no caching. And then using Add Caching Computer, you can add on your Proctor caching computer or computers so that you can get the testing capacity when you're using your Proctor caching setup. Then you'll just click on Start, and it will run the speed check, and then you'll get your results. We have a test complete. If for any reason there was an error, then you would see a red X, and then here in the test progress, there'd be a little information button that you could click to get more information about why the connection failed. But typically, you'll have your test complete, and this is why we made Proctor caching required. So you can see here, this direct to Pearson, I was able to test up to 398 students. With Proctor caching, though, that jumps all the way up to 2,150. So Proctor caching, like I said, is really going to reduce the bandwidth requirements on your internet so that you're able to test more students, and you can test them, again, with less connection errors. It's really going to make it a more smooth testing environment for you, and that's why we need you to be doing Proctor caching, why it's required as of this year. So let's go ahead. I'm going to go ahead and switch out to the my browser. I'm going to go to systemcheck.actaspire.org. It is running that applet. So here, as you saw, told me I needed to update my Java. So went ahead and said I'll do that later. But it is going to run the latest version that I have. The applet pops up. I'm going to go ahead and say run. And it is going to pull up the System Check website. So here it is. Pulls up the System Check website, and here's my Check Your System. So I'm going to go ahead and just click Start, and you'll see it's very quick. This is why we say you can check every single one of your computers, hopefully, but if not, again, at least every image. Very quickly, it's checking that workstation and telling me if I'm ready for desktop app or recommended, or if necessary, browser-based testing. Again, if there were any errors, we'd see our results and what was actually supported over here in the column next to the X. And then here's the verification where I was talking about that you can make sure that the student workstation is able to access TestNav. I'm going to start with browser-based testing right here. Go to that link, and I'm on my sign-in screen. The credentials are just username and password for this quick check. I'm going to type in username, password, and then click sign in. And again, it's going to make me run the Java applet since it's going through my browser. And it's going to load this. You're going to see it's going to start putting my test into full screen mode. This is what's actually locking down, making sure that I can't access other applications. Once I'm in that full screen mode, then I can only access TestNav. I'm going to go ahead and start test now, and you'll see, congratulations, I've successfully launched TestNav. So that lets me know we ran our information, got our results, made sure we met the minimum system requirements, and now we've verified that I can actually successfully launch TestNav and access the content. So I'm going to go ahead and sign out of there. And then I'm going to show this on the TestNav desktop app as well. So here, desktop app, I'm going to go ahead and go open up my TestNav desktop. So this is the installable version, the app, rather than our browser-based testing. Again, get to my sign-in screen. I'm going to use that same username and password and click sign in. And again, it's going to load, put me into that full screen mode, and I'm ready to start the test now, start the section. And again, I get my congratulations screen. So now I've tested browser-based for my backup method. I've tested my desktop app, and it's ready to go. You'll also see that with the desktop app that process went a little bit faster. We're not having to go through the internet. We're not having to load and run the Java applet. So, a couple reasons why we really encourage the desktop app. A little faster process, not having to go through that Java lockdown. And of course, like we talked about, you're not dependent on the browser and Java versions. So I'm going to go ahead and sign out. And that's system check as far as the check your capacity. So then testing capacity, again, this is where you can add your caching computer. Just put in a display name for the computer. The host is that IP address, and then port 4480, and then save that information. And then you can start and get that internet bandwidth check. And that's going to allow you to see the testing capacity so that you know how many students you would be able to test concurrently. Okay. So at this point now, we've gone through Proctor caching, we've installed Proctor caching, we've entered our Proctor cache settings and gotten all of our test content downloaded, gone through system check, made sure that we know our systems as far as our traditional workstations are ready to be used for the TestNav experience. We've done our testing capacity checks so that we know how many students we can test. Now we can talk about TestNav. So again, TestNav is the secure application that students are going to use to participate in the computer-based test. So they'll get their login information from a student authorization ticket that's printed from the ACT Aspire portal. It's going to have their session-specific username and password information on there so that they can log in. So they won't just use, username and password like we did. They'll actually have their own username and password to get to their grade subject test. And then once they log in, they'll be able to access TestNav 8. So again, on a Chromebook or iPad or on our traditional devices, we would recommend using the TestNav 8 app. Chromebooks and iPads, you do have to use the app. There is no browser-based testing on Chromebooks or iPads, but definitely even on your traditional workstations, we would recommend using that TestNav desktop. And then if necessary, use the browser-based testing as a backup. As you saw, as we went through that TestNav verification, once your readiness steps are taken, when students log into TestNav, that computer is automatically going to be locked down, go into that full screen mode, and that's what's going to prevent access to anything outside of the test. While in that full screen mode, any applications that are open in the background, if updates try to run, I was, of course, having multiple apps running. That's not the recommended testing setup. You'd always want to have just have TestNav running on those computers when students log in. You want to make sure that no applications are running, and you want to make sure that you disable any applications from automatically launching, running an update, having a notification. You don't want anything to possibly pop up on the student's computer because it will cause the students to get kicked out of and exited from TestNav. So you want to make sure that only TestNav is running, and again, that no updates or notifications may occur while students are testing. So now we'll talk about the setup methods. So first of all, our recommended is, again, the installable. That's, again, the direct link is download.testnav.com. We support desktop, iPads, and Chromebooks. By desktop, that does include desktop and laptops. And you'll just download and install that. Remember, ACT Aspire does not support Android, so even though you'll see that on the page, you will just go ahead and disregard it. And then if needed, then remember, TestNav is supported for browser-based testing, but again, only on Firefox ESR 45, the 32-bit version. Internet Explorer, Safari, Chrome, any other versions of Firefox, they are not supported and will not launch TestNav. And then regardless of your testing method, whether it's desktop, iPad, Chromebook, or even browser-based, no matter what, you need to make sure that you configure your network. So you want to make sure your firewalls, content filters, spam filters, basically anything that may route or block the information from getting through, you want to make sure that they are whitelisting these URLs, these ports, so that content is able to access through your systems, through your network. So here we have an asterisk that's a wild card, so we'll put those in for these different URLs. So tn.actaspire.org, that's for TestNav, port 80, and then tn.actaspire.org, port 443. So those are for TestNav. These next two rows are also for TestNav, so body.com, pearsontestcontent.com, usertrust.com, and commodica.com. You want to make sure all of those are whitelisted on your firewalls and content filters. These two are specific to the portal, so you want to make sure that the portal is able to, again, get through your network, actaspire.org and highcharts.com. And then optionally, you can also whitelist google-analytics.com. So remember, no matter what method you're using, desktop, iPad, Chromebook, or Firefox, you need to make sure these URLs and ports are able to get access through your network. One note I do want to make is as far as OS 10, 10.12, and iOS 10. As you saw when we were on the support site, we support iOS 9.3.2 and through 9.3.5, and then macOS 10.9 through 10.11. We are not supporting macOS 10.12 Sierra or iOS 10. One note just recently made with macOS 10.12 Sierra is that it will be supported if using the Firefox ESR 45 installable version. So it's not supported on desktop, it is supported for the browser-based testing. But we are not supporting iOS 10 at all. And essentially, with these newer operating systems, we have found that there's a possible test security issue. We are working closely with Apple to try to get those resolved so that we can support these latest operating systems here in the future. But at this point, we would say do not take these upgrades on any workstations or devices that you're going to be using for assessment purposes. If you have already taken this update, then you'll see that there's a contact to Apple support, so that you can contact them and find out about maybe downgrading your operating system. This communication was sent out on October 6th. This was an email that was sent out. If you don't still have that email, again, on the landing page on the technology setup under the bulletins and news, you will find a link to this communication as well. So it is very specific to 10.12 Sierra and iOS 10. So once you choose your installers, whether you're on the landing page or you're on the TestNav support site, it'll take you here to this website, which is download.testnav.com. You'll see the desktop, the iPad. Remember, we do not support Android though, and the TestNav for Chromebook. So these are the installable versions of TestNav. For browser-based TestNav, we do have a link again directly to the OS 10 or Windows versions of Firefox ESR 45, the 32-bit version, so that you make sure you're getting the correct version of Firefox. And then you'll also see the Proctor Cache installers as well. So again, all of these are small footprint. They're meant to be very quick and easy to install. In all of these cases, as far as an individual computer, the installation generally only takes, a few minutes. Obviously, network installations, these are going to vary depending on your environment, number of computers it needs to be installed on, but it's still meant to be a small installation and should hopefully not take you very long even on the network installation. So after you download and install the app, the first time you launch the app, it is going to ask you to select your customer. So you'll just choose ACT Aspire, and that selection will be remembered upon each subsequent visit to TestNav. You'll see, we do also have ACT on here. Maybe you're using TestNav to support both versions. If you ever need to switch between them, then you can always come back to this customer selection screen, and I'll show you that now. I'm going to go back over to my TestNav desktop. And here on the login screen, the sign-in screen, under the user dropdown, you'll see this choose a different customer. And that will take me back out to the customer selection screen. And so if I had been, set up for a different test, I'll just choose ACT Aspire. I know I'm successfully here because I see ACT Aspire, and then students will be able to log in and access their test. And then again, each subsequent time you come back, it will just take you directly to the ACT Aspire login screen. Okay, so now that we've talked about kind of the general information for TestNav, I want to talk a little bit more about two specific devices, Chromebooks and iPads, and we'll go ahead and start with the Chromebooks. Chromebooks are supported for both periodic and summative assessments. They are going to differ from the traditional testing devices in that they are not ever able to use a browser. So with Chromebooks, you will always have to use that TestNav 8 app. And this will require a little bit of configuration on the device itself. The configuration can be done in two different ways depending on your Chromebook management options. Most of our customers are going to be these managed Chromebooks where it's a mass configuration. There's a domain of devices that are all centrally managed by your IT staff. And then unmanaged, again, probably not many of our districts or schools use this option, but unmanaged requires setting up the settings on the device itself rather than through a central management option. But in either case, the main result is that you're going to be enabling kiosk mode on the Chromebook and installing the TestNav 8 app and then setting it as a kiosk application on the computer. There are very, more specific instructions available on the Alabama Avocet site under Chromebooks, as well as on the TestNav 8 support site. So two setup methods. Again, managed devices will be what most of our districts and schools are using. This is where all of the setup steps are going to be performed through that central administration, and all the Chromebooks in that domain are going to be configured at once. So again, you're going to install the TestNav 8 app and set it to run as a kiosk app. You'll then need to make sure that the local data is being preserved on the Chromebook to retain the saved response file, or SRF, and the log files as the students are accessing TestNav. It's going to save that information there locally on the device. Again, unmanaged Chromebooks, not many will be using this, but just in case, the setup steps do have to be performed on each device individually. That does require access to the administrator account for the device. If for some reason you do not have administrator access to the Chromebook, then you need to back it up to cloud storage, wipe it clean before you continue, and then after testing is completed, you would then restore that information from the cloud. So now we'll talk about iPads. iPads are also fully supported for both periodic and summative assessments. Again, they are going to use the TestNav 8 app exclusively. You cannot use a browser to access TestNav through an iPad. So again, there's a little bit of configuration on the device itself, and it's much simpler now. So last year we had 4 different setup options: guided access mode, your mobile device manager, Apple configurator, etc. As of iOS 9.3.2, though, Apple has introduced this new automatic assessment configuration, or AAC. And it's going to affect the setup and sign-in processes for assessments that require that kiosk mode or single app mode, but it makes it much simpler. So with the AAC, there's just going to be a confirm app self-lock prompt that displays when students log in. It's going to prompt the student to say yes and allow the single app mode to start. And so really eliminates all of those previous setup measures that we had. And in fact, TestNav cannot launch a test if you still have one of those previous configurations detected on your device. There's also an enable microphone permission prompt that's been added in the updated TestNav app. This is just, again, a one-time initial appearance when you first launch the TestNav app. Students will see that prompt, or you can see it if you're doing the setup beforehand. But essentially, all you have to do is say OK, enable the TestNav microphone permission. And it's just telling TestNav that if the test includes audio recorder questions, that it can access the microphone. So it's just that one-time setup. And then again, detailed instructions are available on the TestNav 8 support site, as well as on the Alabama Avocet site under I for iPads. So here's that single setup method. So first thing you want to do, since we had those 4 previously established TestNav restrictions, you want to make sure that you remove those, because as we said, they're now going to just have this one method, the AAC, and the automatic assessment configuration is what's going to ensure that students can't access other apps, websites, other features after that single app mode starts on the computer. So those features include things like autocorrection, definitions, keyboard shortcuts, predictive keyboard spell check, etc. So that single app mode is what's going to be what's stopping, releasing the device when the student signs in and out of their test. So first of all, you want to make sure you delete any of those previously established restrictions. So those previous setup options, you want to delete them off of the iPads. And you are welcome to search for the assessments overview on the Apple Education website at apple.com/education/IT so for some more details about the AAC. You'll then need to download and install the new TestNav for iPads app. And then remember when the app is first started, you're going to see that enable microphone permission prompt. Just go ahead and tap or click OK to grant the permission. If for some reason permission was not granted, the next time you try to access the app, then it will prompt you to go to the iPad settings so that you can update that permission to allow the access. After students start to log into TestNav, every single time they log in, they will see a confirm app self-lock prompt. They just need to click or tap yes to proceed with testing. Again, if for some reason they click no, very easy. They'll just need to sign back in again. This time choose yes. So very easy for them if they accidentally click no. Just have them sign in again, click yes, and they'll be able to proceed and access their test. So just that one setup method now. Main things, make sure you say OK on the enable microphone permission prompt, and then students just always need to click yes on the confirm app self-lock prompt. One other thing in regards to iPads, so this is very specific to iPads that you need to be aware of, is that Apple only allows the apps to run in that single app mode through the AAC. That single app mode, which TestNav uses, it can only run for a specific amount of time before it automatically takes the device out of kiosk mode. For iOS 9.3.2 through 9.3.5, which we support, that time limit is 3 hours. So this affects the length of time TestNav is able to run after a student signs into the test. So single subject test. So most students, obviously, they're not going. The tests are not designed to be, 3-hour tests. But just in case you do have students that may need extended testing time, if you plan for this, then it'll be helpful. So make sure you determine if you have any students who may need more than 3 hours for, again, an individual subject test. and then plan a break for them to sign out of TestNav before the time expires. You know, an hour and a half, 2 hours, whatever the case might be. Plan a break for them, let them sign out of TestNav, and then take their break. When they come back, the room supervisor will then need to resume the student's test in the portal and have the student sign back into the test. And they'll be able to continue again for up to 3 hours. If you don't plan for that break and the time limit expires, the student will be, essentially kicked out, exited from the test. The room supervisor will still need to resume the student in the portal, but they'll also need to restart the iPad and the TestNav app and then have the student sign in again. So it's a little bit more time consuming. Obviously, with a planned break, the student knows that's coming, they sign out, they're able to plan for it versus just, being distracted, being pulled out and kicked out of the test and then having to resume. So plan for that, plan a break for them to sign out. It's better for the student and less burden to have to, again, restart the iPad and get logged back in. Plan that break, and then the students can resume testing. Again, this is only on iPads and through the new AAC option. So the app check, like we talked about earlier, system check is not designed for use on our devices, so Chromebooks and iPads. Through the apps, there is an option for you to assess your readiness. And after you install the TestNav 8 app, then you'll be able to run what's called an app check on the device to ensure it's properly configured. So you'll see here on the sign-in screen under that user dropdown, there's an app check option, and you'll either see a success or failure message. So I'm going to go ahead and switch back out to my TestNav desktop app. Since this is an app, I can also do it here. Here on my user dropdown, that first option is App Check. So I'm going to click that. Again, it's putting me into that full screen mode. It's kind of doing what System Check did, making sure that I can access a sample TestNav content. So in this case, I get the message that the app check was successful. If for any reason you got the error message, then out here on the TestNav 8 support site, there is an app check error message option. So if you get this red error message that the app check failed, then you can always come out here onto the support site, find the app check error message and more information about what to do to resolve it. Okay. So the next component of TestNav is what's called the Early Warning System, or EWS. And the Early Warning System is functionality built in, integrated into TestNav. It's running silently in the background for students, so they're not even aware that it's there. But it's there to alert you to any issues that may arise during the test administration. These include, interruptions in your network connectivity, again, other applications attempting to take control of the desktop, and also it's what's going to be maintaining the student responses, making sure that their information is being captured and then transmitted to our servers. So if there's ever, an event that occurs, the early warning system will have a pop-up notification that appears on the student's computer. At which point they can alert, it tells them to alert their test proctor. This is the room supervisor. We'll show you a few examples of the early warning system here in a few slides. It's very important that you're aware that with the early warning system, some of those notifications may involve IT staff. So you want to make sure you have a good communication plan in place so that room supervisors know when to contact their IT staff and who to contact. We always want to make sure that the room supervisors are actively monitoring all students in the room. We don't want them to become too distracted by one individual student. So if there are issues that occur, the early warning system, they're not able to quickly get the student back up and testing, they will need to contact IT staff to come and work with them. So again, we want to make sure you have a good communication plan in place. So now that we have kind of talked about what the early warning system is, let's just discuss it a little bit further. I want to make sure you understand how the saved response file is maintained. These are the students' responses as they progress through the test. So this is a continuous process that runs in the background. It's writing those student responses to this saved response file. Some districts may be concerned about, students and overwriting each other's files, but TestNav is making sure this doesn't happen because it uses a unique file name for each student's test attempt. So that student's authorization ticket with their unique username and password, and the test session information is used to identify their SRF. So as the students start to go through their test and enter their responses, there is a data threshold of about 2 to 3 questions that once reached, it's going to trigger TestNav to take that batch of information, those 2 to 3 questions, and then send the response data over to our servers. So each individual response isn't updated or uploaded immediately, but it's going to have that small batch. It's going to save those to that saved response file, and then once that threshold is reached, it's going to upload the information to our servers. That upload is continuous, so every 2 to 3 questions, it's going to attempt to transmit that information. If it's not able to transmit it, it fails, then the student's going to be able to continue testing. Those responses will continue to be saved there locally into that saved response file until the next cycle occurs, and then it's going to attempt another upload. Once the upload is successful, at that point, TestNav is going to delete the information. So we're only saving information there on the local device for a short time. It's going to be transmitted over to the servers. That information, once we have the successful handshake, the TestNav knows that the servers have been able to receive that information. TestNav then deletes the student responses off of the local device, creates a new empty saved response file, and begins the process all over again. So whenever it's successful, it's going to delete that SRF and create a new one for the student. TestNav, again, is going to use that student's unique login information to identify the correct SRF if the student ever needs to, be resumed and continue testing. That, again, their login information is what's going to be used to make sure that the correct SRF is identified for that student. And then since we only have one SRF at a time, we're going to delete that old one, create a new one whenever the information is successfully transmitted. TestNav will only ever have one SRF to use when a student's test is resumed. That's what's going to make sure that the student's last test attempt is available to the student when they resume the test. Here are some examples of error messages that may occur. So when the EWS encounters an issue, then this message kind of displays on the screen. You'll see that test proctor, click here. So notifies them to alert their test proctor. Again, that's the room supervisor. You'll see the initial prompt doesn't really reveal any information, simply directs the student to inform the room supervisor. So have them raise their hand, let the room supervisor know that they're having an issue, at which point the room supervisor can click on this link and get some more information. Remember then this error message, this number, that what ties into those TestNav 8 error codes that we were looking at, so that you can find this message, error message number, and find the specific resolution steps for that error message. It is important to note that for time tests, if the student is kicked out or logs out of TestNav, the early warning system stops the timer during a testing interruption, and then resumes where the student left off when the student logs back into the test. So the early warning system, when it sees that an interruption has occurred, it's going to stop the timer so that the student isn't losing testing time. They'll be able to resume from where they left off. Then once they click on that test proctor, click here. Just remember that's when they'll be able to see the details for the trigger. And remember, it may be necessary for them to contact their local technology coordinator, and that's where your communication plan comes in place so that a course of action can be determined if necessary. So now let's just kind of talk about putting it all together, the setup. So you've gone through, make sure that you account for, and again, configure your firewalls. If you have an intrusion protection system or IPS or an instruction detection system, an IDS, you want to make sure all of these are have our URLs and ports that we were looking at earlier, that those URLs and ports are whitelisted so that content can get through. Basically, if you have anything on your network that may reroute, alter, or block files, it needs to be configured. Make sure our URLs and ports are able to get through. You also, like we talked about, you want to make sure as well that you disable, suppress, or reschedule any background applications and or updates to them or any taskbar notifications. You want to make sure that students are not kicked out of a test. So if you have anything that may pop up while a student is testing, you want to disable it, suppress it, or reschedule it for a time when students will not be testing so that the students' testing experience isn't interrupted. Remember, proctor caching, it is required this year. So you need to identify your proctor caching machine or machines. Make sure you go download and install the supplied software. Then you want to make sure that you import or input your default settings into the portal. So you want to make sure that that IP address, port information is entered into the portal, because that's what's going to establish the link that as students start to log into TestNav, they are able to then find the proctor caching computer and that specific form that they are taking, and the test content will be delivered to them locally. Make sure you think about and plan out your testing rooms. You want to make sure you have enough devices and peripherals for the students. Make sure you think about power strips, keyboards and mice, and headphones. If you have students who might need, like, for example, a text-to-speech audio option, make sure you have headphones for them. Make sure that they are tested out and they are working. Set up all your mobile devices. If you're doing Chromebooks or iPads or laptops, you want to make sure that the app is installed on all of your mobile devices. Desktop app, of course, also installed on your desktop computers. Install the app, make sure that they are all set up. And again, run your app check, run your system check if necessary for your desktops and laptops. Make sure that they are ready for testing. And then if you are going to be using wireless, we do support wireless testing. You'll need to make sure that you have sufficient wireless access points and that follow some of our best practices. So let's talk about those. So you can do both wired and wireless testing at the same time, but here are some best practices when testing wireless. So ensure that you have sufficient wireless access points and limit the number of computers per wireless access point for better performance. You want to make sure that computers are located closer to the wireless access point, because those perform better than computers that are located far away. So this is where, more is better. More access points, and limit the number of computers per wireless access point so that you're ensuring that students have a smooth testing performance. Think about obstructions. So things such as walls and equipment between the testing workstation and the wireless access point can disrupt the connection and negatively affect performance. I always talk about those cinder block walls that tend to be in schools. Make sure that the obstructions are not limiting your performance. And then always have kind of a scale-up process. Set up a small number of workstations, measure the performance, work out any kinks you may have before you then scale up and set up a larger number of workstations. So just kind of test your performance and make sure that you're prepared, and then scale up from there. Okay, so any questions at this point? Okay, well, if you do have any questions, just feel free to, put those in on your Q&A. Just want to remind folks that we do have some, additional technical readiness training opportunities coming up. We've gone through our new technology readiness training opportunities. Well, on November 1st and 3rd, we will then have webinars for our returning customers and be focused more on reminders and updates. So if you have anyone who would like to attend, then certainly have them sign up for those November 1st or November 3rd trainings. So that concludes our training. I definitely want to thank you for attending. If you have any questions after today, though, you are always welcome to contact ACT Aspire Customer Service. Their phone number is 888-802-7502, and then press option 2 for the Alabama phone queue. They are available Monday through Friday, 6 a.m. to 7:30 p.m. Central Time, or you can always email us at actaspire_implementation@actaspire.org. And we also have a survey if you'd like to take a little bit of time. You're always welcome to submit feedback for our training. Let us know what we did well or what we could do better for next time. Go to www.surveymonkey.com/r/ACTAspire_fall 2016. Again, I am your trainer, Sarah Snuggs. Go ahead and select that. And then under the name of the webinar, at the bottom of the list, there's an other option. And then just put in Alabama Technology Readiness, and that will make sure that we get the survey feedback for this training. And again, I just want to say thank you for attending and have a wonderful afternoon. Thank you.